Have you lost control of your life? Have you lost your personal discipline? Have bad internet habits taken control of your life? Have bad relationships led you to a painful life? Would you like to find some sense in your life again? Come to Jesus. He is inviting you to get back on track toward His path. Hello, you life leaders. Today we continue with our series in the book of Ezra. The book is about the Lord bringing back the Judeans to Jerusalem and to Judea. The book has two sections, chapters 1 to 6 and chapters 7 to 10. Last week we surveyed the first section. Our point was, letter A, the Lord's initiative, restore relationship with Him. The prophet Jeremiah prophesied about this return and it began to be fulfilled in 539 BC under the leadership of Zerubbabel. Let me reiterate this point before we proceed. This was God's gracious work. The Lord commanded the Persian king Cyrus to return their precious holy articles, send back the Judeans, and rebuild the temple that Nebuchadnezzar destroyed. No Judean could do this, only God. The people could not return and accomplish the command of King Cyrus the Great by themselves. They needed the Lord to start this and enable them to complete the project. That's how we ended last week.
So the elders of the Jews continued to build and prosper under the preaching of Haggai the prophet and Zechariah, a descendant of Iddo. They finished building the temple according to the command of the God of Israel and the decrees of Cyrus, Darius, and Artaxerxes, kings of Persia.
So let's review first. 539 BC, Cyrus the Great, king of Persia, released the Judeans to rebuild the second temple, which was completed in 519 BC, during the time of another king of Persia, Darius the Great. So this is about 20 years afterward. In the second section, we jump to about 458 BC, which is about 60 years after the second temple was rebuilt. So in this story, we see a new batch of Judeans returning from Babylon to the land of Judah under the leadership of the priest and scribe Ezra. So let us proceed. The second point and the title of this message is The Lord's Invitation, Return to His Arms. Since the Lord has provided a way for the exiled or wayward people to come back to Him, they needed to act in faith that they can endure the long journey and be excited about to be back home. Since this chapter places the story in about 458 BC, during the reign of the Persian king Artaxerxes I, the people returning from exile were all born there in Babylon. They have never been to Judea before. This will be their first time to see and set foot on their ancestral land. So imagine the excitement of the Lord, not just the people, to see His people back and repopulate the land of Judah. So the first lesson, be a leader like Ezra, a new Moses. The Lord chose the scribe and priest Azariah, or Ezra for short, as the new leader of the new batch of returnees with the permission of Artaxerxes I. That's in chapter 7, verse 13 to 26. Now think about this. It has been about 80 years since Cyrus the Great issued the edict for the Judeans to return. Of course, not everyone joined. Many were left, probably due to uncertainty or hesitation or lack of faith. And perhaps they heard about the rebuilding of the temple and of the city and things were going well for them, for their compatriots. And perhaps they were thinking if they too can go back there and follow them now that the city has been rebuilt. And if they would be accepted by their compatriots. So they needed someone to initiate leading them to their own land. Why was Ezra the right leader for them? Well, first in chapter 7, verses 1 to 7, it shows us that he came from the lineage of Aharon, the first high priest of Israel, the brother of Moses. The Lord has graciously preserved someone from the chosen tribe of the priesthood all throughout the centuries to lead them back to the Lord. He's the right person.
Chapter 7. After these things, during the reign of Artaxerxes, king of Persia, Ezra, son of Seraiah, the son of Azariah, the son of Hilkiah, the son of Shallum, the son of Zadok, the son of Ahitub, the son of Amariah, the son of Azariah, the son of Meraioth, the son of Zerahiah, the son of Uzzi, the son of Bucci, the son of Abishua, the son of Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the chief priest. This Ezra came up from Babylon. He was a teacher, well versed in the law of Moses, which the Lord, the God of Israel, had given. The king had granted him everything he asked, for the hand of the Lord his God was on him.
Second, chapter 7 verses 8 to 10 tells us that the Lord was really with him and that he was truly dedicated to lead the people to follow the law of the Lord. So who else could do this but him?
Ezra arrived in Jerusalem in the 5th month of the 7th year of the king. He had begun his journey from Babylon on the 1st day of the 1st month, and he arrived in Jerusalem on the 1st day of the 5th month, for the gracious hand of his God was on him. For Ezra had devoted himself to the study and observance of the law of the Lord, and to teaching its decrees and laws in Israel.
See that? Among all the priests, God raised someone who was learned in the law of the Lord. Very importantly, he was living it out, just like Moses. He was very obedient to the law of the Lord. He was a model of spirituality. And then he could teach it with full conviction. That's why we need to be life leaders like him. Study the scriptures, live it out, teach it. That is the right process and the right sequence. Don't mix up the sequence. A leader is great not only because he was well qualified, but he was also competent and he initiates things. Ezra urged the Judeans to follow his lead. Now, as life leaders, we need to initiate in leading people back into the arms of God. The Lord commanded it. The king allowed it and even gave his provisions. And we should take advantage of that. We need courage that the Lord will help us in accomplishing his task for us. Second, lead with faith in the provident God. That's who God is. He provides. So when we say provident God, we mean that he will give the leader the opportunity, including his fellow leaders, and the ways and the supplies that they need to accomplish his will. Ezra obeyed the Lord to lead his people. The Lord provided him the legal basis for their return to the land of Judah, or the province of Judah, as the Persians would call it, Yehud Medinata.
Artaxerxes, King of Kings, to Ezra the priest, teacher of the law of the God of heaven, greetings. Now I decree that any of the Israelites in my kingdom, including priests and Levites who volunteer to go to Jerusalem with you, may go. You are sent by the king and his 7 advisers to inquire about Judah and Jerusalem with regard to the law of your God, which is in your hand. Moreover, you are to take with you the silver and gold that the king and his advisers have freely given to the God of Israel, whose dwelling is in Jerusalem, together with all the silver and gold you may obtain from the province of Babylon, as well as the freewill offerings of the people and priests for the temple of their God in Jerusalem. With this money be sure to buy bulls, rams and male lambs, together with their grain offerings and drink offerings, and sacrifice them on the altar of the temple of your God in Jerusalem. You and your fellow Israelites may then do whatever seems best with the rest of the silver and gold, in accordance with the will of your God. Deliver to the God of Jerusalem all the articles entrusted to you for worship in the temple of your God, and anything else needed for the temple of your God that you are responsible to supply, you may provide from the royal treasury.
Wow! Ezra did not only receive permission or legal mandate to lead the people of God, but also abundant blessings from the king of Persia. Just like Cyrus, Artaxerxes the first provided Ezra and all the Israelites all their needs: silver, gold, animals and sacrifices, articles for the house of God, and the budget from the royal treasury. This is the same Artaxerxes I in chapter 4, verses 17 to 23, who responded to Rehum that the rebuilding of the walls of the city be stopped because Rehum misinformed him. But look at this. He was nicer to the Judeans right now. This time, in Ezra chapter 7, verses 12 to 20, he blessed Ezra with what he needed. The Lord provides ways, the legal foundation and the commands from the king, opportunities, great leadership like Ezra and his co-leaders, protection, things, fundings, not just for the journey, but for the offerings to the Lord. Now, I strongly believe that if we are determined to obey the Lord, to lead his people in order to accomplish his will, he will provide everything that we need. There will be challenges, of course, and opposition, but we will succeed. Number 3, lead with courage through the journey. It's time to move forward. We turn to chapter 8, the story of the Aliyah or migration of the Jews from Babylonia to Yehud Medinata or province of Judah. Well, as I've said earlier, there were still many Judeans left in Babylon who did not join Sheshbazzar and Zerubbabel about 80 years prior to Ezra. Well, of course, they repopulated there. And remember the other Judeans that were left in Babylon: Mordecai, Esther, who became the queen of Persia, the wife of Xerxes the First. They were still there. Now, their story came ahead of our story here today in Ezra, well, maybe about 20 years or so. Prepare to lead many people. Be competent and capable for that. And that was what Ezra like. The Lord gave you the ability to lead. And that's why you should hone those skills. Chapter 8 tells us how Ezra led like Moses. Moses brought the people of Israel out of Egypt to the promised land so well. Almost. He didn't make it inside the promised land. Ezra led about 5,000 of God's people from Babylon, and he was successful. We'll see that in verses 1 to 14. Let her be prepare spiritual leaders to lead people. Now, this was the job of Ezra. Verse 15 says that they started preparing 3 days in Ahava by the river of Euphrates. Ezra needed a team of spiritual leaders. So for a while, he found no Levites, but he didn't give up. He sent people to look for Levites in Casiphia.
Because the gracious hand of our God was on us, they brought us Sherebiah, a capable man, from the descendants of Mali, son of Levi, the son of Israel, and Sherebiah's sons and brothers, 18 in all, and Hashabiah, together with Jeshiah, from the descendants of Merari, and his brothers and nephews, 20 in all. They also brought 220 of the temple servants, a body that David and the officials had established to assist the Levites. All were registered by name.
Wow, imagine that. The Lord preserved people who can serve in the temple. Now, Ezra had enough Levites who can serve as priests before God. Now, I believe that the Lord prepares people first. Maybe these people thought that they were useless because there was no temple to conduct their services, even though they were Levites, because they were in Babylonia. When Ezra found them and called them, they responded well. It's an opportunity to function as priests. Perhaps they were so excited and felt so honored to be of service very near God's presence inside the temple. That's your calling, e-life leaders, to mediate for people, to connect them to God, to serve before God's presence, to bring people closer to Him and make them realize that He is close and reachable. Letter C, prepare the hearts of people for the journey. It wasn't going to be easy. It was going to be long, tedious, and dangerous. Ezra tells us why, starting in verse 21.
There, by the Ahava Canal, I proclaimed a fast, so that we might humble ourselves before our God, and ask Him for a safe journey for us and our children with all our possessions. I was ashamed to ask the king for soldiers and horsemen to protect us from enemies on the road, because we had told the king, the gracious hand of our God is on everyone who looks to Him, but His great anger is against all who forsake Him. So we fasted and petitioned our God about this, and He answered our prayer.
Even with the blessings of the king of Persia, Ezra relied on the Lord that they will make it to Jerusalem without the protection of the king of Persia. Because the Lord was their guide and protection, just like Moses led the Israelites through the river and through the desert because of the protection of the Lord. Now, here's a very important lesson that we need to learn. It's about fasting. Fasting is a way to bodily sacrifice to God in order to gain spiritual strength. See, the body is weak so that the spirit can be strengthened by the Lord, so that we would not rely on our physical strength. When the spirit receives power, the body will be able to accomplish very difficult tasks that it could not do without the spiritual power that God provides. In that way, we can say that we did the will of the Lord by spiritual power. Well, of course, fasting is a way to humble ourselves before the Lord. Well, surely fasting was also a way to ask for forgiveness and for restoration. Perhaps Ezra did that as well. But this kind of fasting was more on humbling themselves to submit before God's covering and protection. When soldiers want to be strong, they need to eat much so that they have enough energy to fight. Well, in this case, they're not going to fight a physical battle. That's why fasting is counterintuitive. You cannot go on a long journey and fight bandits if you are physically weak. But still, they fasted. Why? Because fasting would allow them to see the supernatural hand of God in their lives. And that is true for us too. Ezra would have to wrestle with flesh and blood in fighting the bandits, caravan robbers. But he chose to prepare to fight them with the spiritual power even before he could encounter them. And guess what happened? They made it to Jerusalem safe and sound without any difficulty. and with all their precious items safe and fully intact. And that's in verses 24 to 30. You see, without gaining spiritual strength from physical fasting, the leaders and the people would not be able to go on a journey successfully. Letter D, proceed with courage and excitement. People tend to be nervous during the journey, and they would be relieved when they arrive in their destination. Well, that's understandable. But we need to have the right attitude as we lead and take that journey, that we will be fine. The Lord will be taking care of us. Now, going back to chapter 7, verse 9, Ezra led the people on the first day on the first month. That would be April 8, 458 BC. Though there was a little bit of delay, as we saw a while ago, because they were looking for Levites, well, they actually left 12 days after. A commentary from the CSB Study Bible says, taking the shortest route, this would be a journey of about 500 miles or 804 kilometers. However, such a route across the desert would be unlikely in summer, particularly during a time of political upheaval that made travel even more dangerous. Now, the more common route covered about 900 miles, 1,448 kilometers. After a 14-week pilgrimage, they probably arrived in Jerusalem on August 4, 458 BC. Now, remember, the journey from Egypt to Canaan also took a detour because of the Edomites, their cousins, descendants of Esau, because they didn't allow them to pass by. And so they had to go the longer route around them before they got to the plains of Moab, before entering the promised land. We're not really sure if the Judeans take the longer or shorter route. The important thing here is that they made it there. So how did the journey go?
On the 12th day of the first month, we set out from the Ahava Canal to go to Jerusalem. The hand of our God was on us, and He protected us from enemies and bandits along the way. So we arrived in Jerusalem, where we rested 3 days. On the 4th day, in the house of our God, we weighed out the silver and gold, the sacred articles, into the hands of Meremoth, son of Uriah the priest. Eleazar, son of Phinehas, was with him, and so were the Levites, Jozabad, son of Jeshua, and Noadiah, son of Binnui. Everything was accounted for by number and weight, and the entire weight was recorded at that time.
Awesome! They made it to Jerusalem, unharmed, complete, and quite well. Just like what Moses said to the Israelites, Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 4, your clothing did not wear out, and your feet did not swell these 40 years. So great job, Ezra. Great job, Levites. Congratulations, Jews. You made it back to the land of Judah. See that God fulfills His promises. He never lies. So give glory to God. Now start right and prioritizing the Lord, e-life leaders. We can lead like Ezra. We can lead like Jesus. Bring people to the Father's arms. We can do this. Now, how about that chapter 8 as we close? They worshiped God to give thanks to Him.
Then the exiles who had returned from captivity sacrificed burnt offerings to the God of Israel. 12 bulls for all Israel, 96 rams, 77 male lambs, and as a sin offering, 12 male goats. All this was a burnt offering to the Lord. They also delivered the king's orders to the royal satraps and to the governors of Trans-Euphrates, who then gave assistance to the people and to the house of God.
Oh, but wait, they were just beginning a new life in the land. We will talk more about that next week when Ezra realized that they had a lot of changing to do first. So letter B, the Lord's invitation, return to His arms. Number 1B, a leader like Ezra, a new Moses, lead with faith in the provident God, lead with courage through the journey. Prepare to lead many people, prepare spiritual leaders to lead people, prepare the hearts of the people for the journey, proceed with courage and excitement. I have presented this message from a leadership perspective. Lead people back to the Lord. Your role as an e-life leader is very important to people wanting to find God or to find their way back to God. And we should imagine ourselves in the shoes of Ezra so we can learn how to lead people to the Lord with success. We have one more lesson to go in this series. Watch out for it.